This is the reaction of a man who lost everything, a recreation of what Wladek Pilman, a Polish pianist, experienced. He had a normal life until 1939 when the Germans invaded Poland. Blade tried to continue living a normal life, working and spending time with his family and loved ones, but soon it became impossible. Soldiers invaded the streets, and stores and establishments refused entry to Jews. They were forced to wear a Star of David on their right arm for easy identification, and the hatred towards them grew stronger. One day, Blade's sister gave him a piece of news that changed everything. She handed him a newspaper, and Blade, fed up with everything that was happening, snatched it and saw the plans of a city. His sister, with fear in her eyes, said, "This is where they are going to take us, Wladek." Wladek and his family, along with many other Jews, were taken to a Jewish ghetto. The Germans created over 400 of these ghettos to isolate and segregate them. Wladek and his brother sold books to gather some money, and Wladek also played the piano in a restaurant. But it was not enough. Gradually, the family witnessed the worsening of their situation. People were starving on the streets, losing their lives due to hunger. The Germans became increasingly aggressive towards the Jews. They were going to be relocated, and Blade, along with his family and many other Jews, was taken to a train station. Some thought they would be taken to work, while others believed they were being transported to camps where they would die. Suddenly, the father of the family saw a child selling sweets. He bought one, split it into 6 pieces, and they all took apart, unaware that it would be their last meal together. In reality, these trains were headed to concentration camps, where the Jews who could work were forced into inhumane conditions, while those who couldn't work were exterminated in ovens or gas chambers. And that was exactly where the pianist was headed. The trains arrived, and Blade and his family walked in line to board. However, an officer violently pulled them apart. Blade tried to return to his family, but his father and the others moved away and got lost among the crowd. The same officer who had pulled him away threw him to the ground and said, "Save your life, now go." He got up and, to blend in, helped another man carry a cart filled with bodies. Blade's family didn't know it, but those trains were going to extermination camps, from which no one ever returned. The trains departed and the city was left empty. Devastated, the pianist walked through the desolate streets. He had just lost everything, and the worst was yet to come. Now the pianist had to survive until the Allies won the war. To do this, Blade worked as a laborer, building within a Jewish ghetto. If one had a work permit, they wouldn't be deported to the camps. Blade carried bricks to the construction site, but he got distracted by some airplanes and dropped them. A German officer called Blade and prepared to execute him, as he had seen the Germans' ruthless behavior towards them before. However, the officer only took out his whip and beat him to the ground. Since Blade, being a pianist, wasn't very strong, a friend helped him find a job in the warehouses where provisions brought from the city were stored. Knowing that the Germans could end his life at any moment, Blade asked a colleague to search for some old friends who could help him escape. What the pianist didn't know was that surviving outside would be nearly impossible. So Blade prepared himself and left with one other person. He walked alone through the cold streets until he found his friend, Janina. They embraced each other in tears as the pianist looked extremely deteriorated. They provided him with food and warm water. Basic things like nourishment and a bath had become luxuries in Blade's life. A friend of the couple named Marek took the pianist to an apartment to live there, but he gave him 3 instructions. First, don't make noise to avoid being discovered. Second, Janina and I will bring you food and water so that you don't have to go out. And third, if you have an emergency, go to this address. Things seemed to be improving. They slept in a comfortable place, and his friend visited him, and for the first time, Blade felt at peace. However, something happened that shattered everything. Mark arrived at the apartment and informed Blade that Janina and her husband had been arrested, and they had to flee. Blade refused to leave and was now completely on his own. Time passed, and the food ran out. The pianist tried to find something to eat in the pantry, but there were only crumbs. And then the worst happened. The neighbor realized that he was a Jew and alerted everyone to catch him, but Blade managed to escape. After this event, his life started to deteriorate dramatically. Some friends helped him find a place to live, but his caretaker stopped bringing him food and he fell ill. Nevertheless, he managed to recover. In August 1944, the Polish resistance fought against the Germans. From his window, the pianist witnessed the battle. A tank turned and aimed directly at his building, firing and destroying it completely. Blade ran for his life, hiding and even pretending to be dead to survive. He spent his days in abandoned buildings, freezing in the cold and eating whatever he could find. The Germans didn't stop destroying the city, and Blade, with his dwindling strength, had to keep running. By this point, his body was severely deteriorated, and he could only think of finding shelter and food. Desperately, he searched old kitchens for something to eat, and they found him. He placed a can on a wall and began to open it, but it slipped from his hands, rolled on the floor, and ended up at the feet of a German soldier. Wladek had been discovered. They locked eyes, and the pianist froze in fear. However, he was so weak that he couldn't even run. He told the soldier that he was a pianist, and the soldier asked him to play. Blade did what he loved most in life, playing the piano with the little strength he had left. He played for his life, and he played incredibly well. He performed Chopin's Ballade No. 1, leaving the soldier deeply moved. Instead of taking his life, the soldier not only spared him, but also decided to help him by bringing him bread and jam for an entire month, saving him from starving to death. This man was called Wild Hostenfield, a captain in the German army who helped hide and rescue several Poles and Jews. Despite belonging to the Nazi army, he knew that everything was wrong and expressed his repudiation in letters he sent to his wife, stating that they didn't deserve mercy, as they were all guilty. He was fully aware of everything and tried to help, saving dozens of people by providing them with false identities and jobs. In Blade's own words, Wild Hostenfield was the only human being in a German uniform. However, as we all know, Germany lost the war, and despite being a good person, he met a tragic end. After the war ended, the Red Army arrested Will in a town called Brandy. We see the Polish violinist and friend of the pianist being freed from a concentration camp. When he learns that he is a violinist, he asks if he knows Blade and pleads for help to save him because Will had saved his life. However, since none of the musicians knew the captain's name, they couldn't help him. He was sentenced to 25 years of forced labor for alleged war crimes that were never proven. Ultimately, due to the deplorable living conditions, he died in a labor camp in Stalingrad at the age of only 57. When Blade's book was released, it was censored because he described Will as a good person, and at that time it was forbidden to praise the figure of the German army. However, I believe it is important to remember these kinds of figures who, even within a context, a group, a society that demands the opposite, that they go against their convictions, these figures remain steadfast in their values. I believe it is important to remember them so that they inspire us when we find ourselves in similar situations where we are tempted or almost forced and pressured to act against our convictions and values. Hope you liked the video. Subscribe for more content like this and hit the like button to help us out. Also leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie.